Okay. Hi, everyone. Today we have Jillian Woods with Prenatal Prana and the Jillian Woods Method, and we are launching her first e-course on June 1st. Yay, Jill!
Yay!
Jill, thank you for being with us today. We just wanted to ask you a few questions, find out a little bit more about you, your practice, your course that we're launching. And we want to know all the great things about why we need prenatal yoga. I personally did your class with both of my babies, and it was a wonderful firsthand experience, and it made a big difference in my labor, my calming effects, and then also relaxation. Definitely had sciatica for both of them, and all the things that you gave me during that were amazing. Even though it's always better right after the birth for all those problems, but you have 9 months to get through. So Jill is our amazing prenatal prana expert, and let's just dive right in. So Jill, tell me a little bit about yourself this morning.
Okay. I live in Oklahoma City with my husband, Nick, my 3 kids, Harry, Sydney, and Graham. And before those kids came along, I had a nice little sales career with Gala Winery in Washington, D.C. And Nick was living in Los Angeles. And we met up at a friend's wedding in Arkansas, somehow connected, got engaged, moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And then we were thinking about starting a family, and Oklahoma's always been home for both of us. So we moved back to Oklahoma City, and I was still working for the winery, but I was also teaching vinyasa flow classes, and I was teaching in the Arts District in Paseo. And I met my prenatal yoga teacher there and started taking a prenatal yoga certification and postnatal certification. And then I got pregnant with my first son and completely fell in love with the practice. And when I had Harry, I stopped working for the winery and started teaching prenatal yoga more on a full-time basis, and have never looked back. I mean, it's been like the best 10 years of my life. And it was also great because it was the time of life that I was in, I mean, it was the working for the winery was wonderful, and it was a great career, but working with women and children and babies when I was in the same phase of life, it was just like the perfect transition into motherhood. And then also having Harry and Sydney and Graham under the instruction of my prenatal yoga teacher, who was also my doula, just made the transition into motherhood so beautiful. So, we love living in the city. We have a great little setup, and I've got a great partner who's super supportive. So it's been really nice. I feel really grateful to have such a great family, and they're so supportive of what I do. So
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because conversations that we have with other moms, it's almost like we as women sometimes we find our calling after we have our children. It's almost like they set us up in that mindset that now, sometimes we have limitations, or we're stuck in this kind of 9 to 5 career type mindset, but then it's all of a sudden, maybe it's just because you realize that they're way harder than everything else, so you're like, okay, I can do this now.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny, Lydia, I think when you find something you're so passionate about, you don't know how you're going to make it work, but it always just somehow works. Like, I want to do this work till the day I die. I love it. And
Mm-hmm.
I love working with women, and we have a really great community in Oklahoma City. So, and I'm excited to share our work with more women outside of Oklahoma City. So
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. So, what does yoga do for your body, mind, and soul in relation to prenatal?
cool. So whenever we step onto our mat and we start to sync the body, mind, and soul, everything starts to flow a little bit better, more easily, and in harmony. And then when we step into a prenatal yoga class and we sync body, mind, soul, breath, and baby, something really beautiful happens. Because before that, the practice, whatever practice you have, or maybe a lot of women don't have a regular yoga practice, and that's fine. Anyone who comes to prenatal yoga, it's very gentle. So it's appropriate for beginners as well. But there's something so special when you connect with baby during your pregnancy. And oftentimes, if there's another child at home, that might be the only time that you have on your mat, is to connect with your baby and to slow down We have these beautiful mantras that we say to our baby in the class. And so I think you start to get to know each other really well in utero. And it's really beautiful because I think we can get into that fast lane of we are running and gunning and we're pregnant and we're researching the best stroller and the best crib and the car seat, and we're doing this and we're getting our birth photographer ready, and all of these things
Mhm.
that we
Yeah.
think are really important, and they are. But to me, the most important thing you can do is slow down and connect to your breath in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, and then most importantly to your baby. And your baby can hear you and they can feel you. And when you take that time, I mean, I think it creates a really gentle transition into motherhood as well, because you're letting everyone know I'm taking this time for myself to connect and to slow down. And your baby can feel that energy. They know in utero, my mom's got this. She's so good. She cares so much. She gets on her mat every week, couple hours, and it's a big deal to carve out that time. But to me, it's the best time spent with your baby in that quiet, meditative state, speaking mantras to your baby. And I will compare it, like my oldest son's super into basketball, and so we're always watching. We're gonna, watching all these ESPN clips and talking about LeBron James, and Michael Jordan has his documentary. And I will tell the girls, I mean, I feel like, getting in the zone, like a basketball player would get in the zone for a basketball game, it's really vital to the outcome of your childbirth experience and then your postpartum experience. And so to me, those 9 months, if you can spend them doing yoga, meditation, any sort of yin restorative practice, it makes a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
The outcome. Yeah.
And I think I love that you touched on the part, and for me, this was very, very true. That was like with Hawk, who was my second. That was the only time that it was like the pregnancy didn't really exist because I was busy with a 1-year-old
Yeah.
until I had that quiet time in the practice of prenatal yoga, and then that was our slow bonding together. But it was nice. So I think that that's very, very valuable. So I know sometimes when we introduce this and have conversations, I think a lot of mamas are, hesitant because they are saying, no, I don't do yoga. But Michelle and I were trying to get across the best way of explaining that it's not just yoga. And I think you touched a little bit on that with the connectivity and then also the relaxation, because it's almost what you do from our perspective of taking the course with you is it's like the labor prep that no one recommends as much, because it
Right.
actually, for me, when I was going through labor, I used more of the breathing exercises and the yoga movements more than any of the other childbirth class
Yes.
tips that I got.
Yep. I agree. So did I. I mean, I think the reason that class is so special, and I learned, all of that from my teacher, is that breath work is so important. And again, just your mental clarity and the strength that you have in your mind, that you can almost train the mind down with the breath to say, I mean, your mind can spin when you start laboring, and childbirth is hard. I mean, it's hard work. But when you can connect to the breath and you can start to slow the mind down, then the body will follow your lead. And I do think that's important. I think you can go to any yoga class when you're pregnant, but if it's not prenatal yoga specific, and especially in our classes, we're talking so much about childbirth, you run the risk of first injuring your body, but also you miss that prep for childbirth, which is what it's all about, and how to connect to the breath. And I agree with you, Lydia. The things that I used for my prenatal yoga classes the most were the breath work. I mean, oftentimes at the very end, if I'm still kind of hanging on and I can feel any sort of clenching in my jaw, if I can just relax my jaw, my pelvic floor relaxes, the baby almost immediately comes out. All 3 times. It's like at the very end, I'm holding on, I'm a little nervous, here we go, relax the jaw. But I can just hear my teacher, I can hear that loop in my head of relax the jaw, your eyes, your shoulders. And so I think the reason people think that this program is so special is because it is so much more than a yoga class. It's a community for women. We all want to feel a connection, and we all want to feel supported. Everyone wants that. A baby wants a connection to their mother. As mothers, we want connection to other mothers in our community. And so to me, it just provides this beautiful space for community and connection, and you know that you're all going through this together. Whoever's taking the course, there's other women that are going through the same thing. And then that breath work and prep for childbirth. I mean, it really is, it's really special. The program's really
It
special.
is. You're
Yeah.
right. So I think you already answered one of my next questions, but I wanted to know, what was the one thing that you used from your practice that you remember helping with your labor the most? Was it the relaxing the jaw, or to relax the pelvic floor?
Yes, breath. For me, it was breath work. And we talk, the breath work that we use in class is in through the nose, out through the mouth, because when the jaw is relaxed, the pelvic floor is relaxed. So you kind of ride that breath all the way through, but then there's different breath work that we use before and after contractions. And then when it gets really interesting around transition and we're getting closer to meeting our babies, that breath work, we call it apana energy in yoga, or the 3-part breath, where you're bringing the breath in and then it's like a big breath down and out to help baby move down and out. I mean, I used a lot of yoga positions as well, like side lunging, because I had a little bit of back labor. I used down dog to help with the cervical lip. I mean, there's so many things that we teach in this class that I used. I used a lot of child's pose, a lot of all fours positions. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you learn anything, any takeaway, because even if, you know, everyone's going to have a different experience. So some people aren't going to be able to move around as much, but as long as you have that breath work, even if you need to be in the bed the whole time and you can't be on the floor or walking around or in a soaking tub, you always have your breath. So
Mm-hmm.
you always have your breath with you, and that can guide you just from start to finish.
Yeah, I like that.
Part of it as well. Yeah, and motherhood. You got to take breath work into motherhood.
Right, exactly. I know with toddlers, screaming toddlers, breath work still works.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about relaxation techniques during labor and how valuable they are. Just reviewing your course, it looks like that's something that you hit on quite a bit. And I just want all of our viewers and our women that are interested in the course to understand the vital pieces of relaxation.
Yes. Well, relaxation, we can get women into these different relaxation modes by the breath work that we just talked about. And there's 3 different series of breath work that I talk about specifically in the course that are very important, and they're important to different phases of labor. And we go over that so everyone will feel very comfortable. And then you also have a little one-on-one session so we can review breath work if something doesn't make sense or you don't know exactly how to use it. And then also there's meditation techniques where we're counting the breath. You can close the eyes and count the breath in, count the breath out. There's alternate nostril breathing, which we can use to balance the left and the right side of the brain. So I think the breath work, the mantras, and the meditation techniques that we teach in this course are all very helpful for childbirth.
Yeah. So there's a term that you taught me and I didn't understand at all. I hadn't heard from like my OB or any of the courses that I went through prepping for labor. And please correct me if my pronunciation of this is wrong. But it's contraindicated.
Mm-hmm.
That okay.
Yes.
So that for me was kind of a new novel thing that you had talked about, and I didn't know that there were things that were. And if you don't mind, can you define what contraindicated means?
Yes. So contraindicated would be something that we're going to have to take a pause, Lydia, because
Okay, that's totally fine.
about this just for 1 minute.
So Jill, something that I learned from you in your course in regards to pregnancy and prenatal yoga, and it was a novel term for me that I hadn't really heard before. And forgive me if I am slaughtering the pronunciation of it, but it's contraindicated.
Yes.
And you talked a lot about that in regards to movement of the body and some exercises and poses we could do. And I hadn't heard this from any OBs or any of the childbirth educators or courses, but basically the overview of the definition means it's something that's going to work against your state and body. So in regards to yoga, what you were saying is that there's some types of poses and movements that aren't good for when you are pregnant. So instead of me kind of long-winding any more of that, can you tell me just a few examples? And I know you go over this in detail in the course that we're launching, and you're very specific how women need to take care of their bodies and that. But I just want to give our viewers just an overview of this now, because I wasn't aware of this until I met you, actually. So tell me a little bit about contraindication with yoga poses and your course.
Okay, perfect. So postures that are contraindicated, and you'll notice this in the course, there's no deep and intense, there's no deep intense abdominal twisting, there's no deep intense forward folding. All of these things create intra-abdominal pressure, which is not optimal for baby. And so you'll notice in the course, it will feel a little more gentle. And we do a little bit of twisting here just for the thoracic spine. So in between the shoulder blades, because I understand, just like anyone, sometimes you need a little twist or you need to get into the upper spine, but any big twisting like you would do in a traditional hatha class or a vinyasa class or an ashtanga class is contraindicated for pregnancy. Same with deep forward folding, any sort of back bending. Then we start to talk about creating a diastasis, or some people call it diastasis, which is where the abdominal muscles separate, and we have some separation in the abdominal muscles, which is, we don't want that ever, and we want women to keep their abdominal muscles strong. But in our classes, we work and focus more on the transverse abdominal muscles, which are the muscles that run like a girdle around the body. So there's a lot of things, unfortunately, that care providers, they don't have the time probably to talk about this with everyone. And then also, again, if you're not doing a prenatal yoga class or a prenatal specific exercise program, they also might just not have that information. And I think in the future, I'm going to start helping during 200-hour and 500-hour yoga trainings with just a 3-hour course for new teachers coming out just over the pregnant body. Because a lot of us, I didn't get anything about pregnancy except don't let them twist. So I had to take a full prenatal yoga certification, full postnatal yoga certification. So oftentimes people just don't have the information, but
Sure.
it is a very important time in your life. And so you don't want to injure your body, again, create that intra-abdominal pressure. And sometimes those postures, like an inversion, we can use an inversion if we have a breech baby or a transverse baby. We don't want to be doing a lot of inversions, because then sometimes babies will be flipping around. And if we have baby head down, we want baby head down and in the optimal position for childbirth. And so my course, again, isn't just yoga and breathwork and meditation. A lot of this is we're trying to get baby lined up perfectly so you can have a beautiful childbirth experience and avoid some of the things that happen when baby's not in an optimal position. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to get that kind of cleared up, because that's a term that, and since then, and I know that's what happens is I've seen it, I'm reading online and childbirth things, but just wanted to make sure our mamas got what that meant from you and in regards to your course. So you did mention just a little bit of postpartum information. So just as a quick extra tidbit for our viewers, I wanted to go ahead and ask you, what are just maybe 1 or 2 key highlighted areas that postpartum mamas need to think about or consider with yoga practice and kind of recovery after labor? What would be your kind of big top ones?
I love this question, Lydia, because I think sometimes we feel this pressure to get out of the gates a little too early. And this is a really beautiful, special time for a woman to be quiet and to connect with her baby and to take it slow. You know, in other cultures, oftentimes women's feet won't even touch the ground during the entire 4th trimester. People are coming in and they're nourishing the mother and they're taking care of the baby. And so we do tell women, you know, those first 2 weeks, if you can just spend those first 2 weeks in your pajamas and really just lean into this process and connect with your baby and eating nourishing foods. And we don't have anyone start our postpartum classes until 2 weeks. And even then, if they want to come for 2 weeks, they're just coming to feed their babies, be in our community, sing to their babies, and use the breath work. And then at 6 weeks, we tell women, if you're cleared by your care provider and you would like to join us for our postpartum classes, that's when we start just an easy, gentle little 30-minute series with baby. which is nice because we want you to stay with your babies. You're still connecting and bonding with baby. Um, and those postures are, again, very specific for the postpartum body. We were very mindful, again, of the abdominals and the pelvic floor and everything that the body has been through during childbirth. And then we're also incorporating baby into our practice. So we're showing you how to, you can lift your baby and use your baby as a weight. You can do standing postures with your baby. You can nurse your baby on your side and do some sweet little exercises for your hips and your abdominals. So we're trying to bring balance back to the body in the postpartum class. The abdominals are shifting back into the space that they were originally before you had your baby. It's pretty wild what happens to the organs, excuse me, not the abdominals, the organs. So we are just tending and nurturing and caring for the postpartum body and then for your baby as well. But more restorative yin practices, again, not a lot of deep back bending or twisting. It's all pretty similar to prenatal. And then eventually, 3-6 months down the road, when we know that the abdominals are healed, there's no separation in the abdominals, your body's feeling good, you do need to get back to twisting. You do need to do deep forward folding. All of those postures are actually really important to the female body, but we just want to take it slow out of the gates. And I think when you take that time to nourish your body and really slow down and be quiet and heal, you have a much better postpartum experience and motherhood experience, because you're not dealing with some of the aches and pains and injuries
Yeah.
that someone would deal with, which is unfortunate because, again, just not everyone has the information. So I think once you have
Right.
the information, you have a responsibility, just to be a little more careful and mindful with your body.
Sure.
And for some people will only have one baby. And so, that one sweet little baby that you get to have, you might not ever have this experience ever again. So to me, your baby can become your practice. My teacher would say that to me. I would say, can't get on my mat, can't find the time. And she would say, your baby's your practice. And one restorative practice or one restorative posture with your baby, sometimes that's all you get. And that's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's very beautiful. I love that. Okay. So I have a question for you in regards to our community and whole modern parent, and just for our viewers. So Jill's course is launching on June 1st. And this is our first course for our platform. So thank you, Jill. Michelle and I are very, very excited. We've gone through this we've gone through both Jill's courses with our babies, and then going through this process with Jill, and we are so excited to be releasing this. I mean, you guys, it's amazing. It really is. I wish I would have had an online, because sometimes it's not easy to make it every week to in-person classes, and especially with everything going on now, at least this is an option that you have that you can do in your home. So along those lines, what makes you a whole modern parent, Jill?
Okay. I think what makes me whole, and this is pre-parenting and then post-parenting, is I always have really tried to take that time to connect to my deepest self and to find quiet time to be still and lean into that body, mind, and spirit connection. And then along came, really beautiful breath work with babies. And I think you and I have talked about this in the past, and I talk about it in my classes with women, because I think sometimes we feel like self-care, is such a privilege or a luxury, and you have to have all these resources to do it. But when my babies were little, I feel like for me, part of being a whole modern parent was just taking that time to connect to myself. And oftentimes it was just a cup of tea. I always have a cup of tea. It was a cup of tea by myself and maybe just a couple pages in my favorite book, or an Epsom salt bath. I would nurse my baby, and my husband would take my babies and rock them and read to them, and I would take a long bath by myself. And then as our kids have gotten older, it's pretty neat. Now we're all doing a lot of things outdoors together, or I'll jet off for a yoga class or a meditation series. And again, my husband and I do a really nice job, I feel like, of balancing our time with our children, but then also taking that time by ourselves. I feel like I'm a much better mother and partner and friend and sister and yoga teacher if I take that time to rest and renew and restore. So I think part of being a whole modern parent is, um, taking those small little timeouts for yourself and come back refreshed and stronger and more present. I feel like a
Mhm.
more present parent when I take that time. And I also think what you say really matters to your children. And so my yoga practice and meditation practice has really taught me to slow down, because I think I can shoot from the hip. And as a mother, you want to be really
I think
mindful.
every mother can.
And I screw it up sometimes, but I keep trying to come back to, what I say matters. And my children are 9, 7, and 4. They're getting really big. And so I want them to pattern their behavior after our behavior. And when we're whole, and we're taking care of ourselves, I feel like everything just flows a little bit better in our house. But it's really fun. They're super fun, and everyone in our house is really respectful of each other's time. And so my
Yeah.
oldest son is like reading the Harry Potter series right now, and my daughter's really into art, and our other son's like toppling over everything and doing his thing out on his bike. But everyone's giving each other that space, and I think
Mhm.
we created that when they were little, and they're really sweet. We live in a cute little bungalow, and people are right on top of each other, but we carved this time out, and it's really nice. It's really
Yeah.
special. Yeah.
I think there's something, it's like, it's almost like creating these different spaces for everyone. I think there's something really valuable, and innate and beautiful in it, that, as a whole, we're this whole family together, but
Yes.
within the whole, we have little versions of whole, and whatever that means to you. If you need to take your time here, and then you need to do that. And actually, my husband and I were talking about that, and we've I had like a surgery thing last week, and then he hasn't felt the greatest. And I was like, we should just pretend to be sick once a month, maybe.
Right. Give
The
that
other one
time.
takes care of the other one, and then that's like your break. You don't have to do
Right.
the kids, just giving back, but like not actually get sick, because that part is not fun.
Right.
But doing something, just to give back, because it's at some point, you're missing that, and it's nice to be cared for, and it's not the focus is not always on kind of the smallest, loudest units, but it's
Yes.
always it's everyone. Everyone's a
Yeah.
pillar, and it
Yeah.
has equal weight too. So.
So true. Yeah. And creates a more balanced family for sure.
Mhm. It
Yep.
does. It does. Well, Jill, thank you so much for your time this morning. And we'll be seeing your course launch and be giving more information on that. And if we have any other questions from viewers, we might have to jump back on and have another conversation. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lydia. I'm
Okay.
excited. Thank you.
Thank you.